The distress signal traveled through the cold vacuum of space for 7 months before it reached the outer colonies. It was weak, fragmented, and filled with the kind of desperation that made even hardened communication officers pause at there. Stations. Commander Blake stood in the bridge of the UE's vengeance, studying the translated message that flickered across the main screen. The words were simple, but they carried the weight of an entire dying world. Double quotes. Please. Anyone. Our children are dying. They come from the dark between worlds. We cannot fight. We are peaceful. Please help us. The bridge fell silent. Around the galaxy, humanity was known by many names. The Scourge of Proxima, the Iron Death, the species that had turned 3-star systems into graveyards during the Outer Rim Wars. When other races spoke of humans, they did so in whispers, warning their young to stay far from human space. But Blake saw something else in that message. Behind the static and alien syntax, he heard what his ancestors might have called a prayer. "Sir," Lieutenant Parks said from the communication station, "the signal originates from the Keth system. That's beyond the neutral zone." Blake nodded slowly. The Keth system was home to the Gentle Ones, a species so peaceful they had no word for violence in their primary language. They were farmers, artists, and philosophers who had achieved spaceflight through pure scientific curiosity rather than military need. Their ships were beautiful, flowing things that looked more like sculptures than vessels. "Run a full scan of that sector," Blake ordered. "I want to know what's happening out there." The tactical officer's fingers danced across his console. "Sir, long-range sensors show multiple unknown vessels in the Keth system. Configuration suggests raiders. Sir, possibly the Void Hunters." A chill ran through the bridge crew. The Void Hunters were nomads who lived in the empty spaces between stars, surviving by stripping entire worlds of resources and selling populations into slavery. They were brutal, efficient, and had never shown mercy to any species they encountered. "They picked the wrong target," Blake said quietly. "Sir?" Parks looked confused. "The Gentle Ones have no military, no weapons. They'll be slaughtered." Blake turned to face his crew. These were veterans of a dozen conflicts, men and women who had seen the worst the galaxy could offer. But they were also human, and despite what the rest of the galaxy believed, that meant something important. "Prep the ship for jump," he ordered. "Send word to Fleet Command. Tell them we have a Code 7 humanitarian crisis." "Sir," the navigation officer interrupted, "if we respond to this, every species in 3 sectors will know. They'll think we're expanding again. The Coalition might. The Coalition can file a complaint." Blake cut him off. "Plot a course for the Keth system, maximum burn." As the ship's engines began to hum with power, Blake thought about the message humanity would send by responding to this call. The galaxy already feared them. Every child on every world learned stories about the terrible humans who could turn peaceful planets into battlefields, who fought with a fury that scared even their allies. What they didn't understand was why humans fought that way. The jump engines engaged, tearing a hole in space-time itself. As the stars streaked past the viewports, Blake opened a channel to the ship's crew. "All hands, this is the commander." His voice echoed through the corridors. "We've received a distress call from a peaceful species under attack. I know what the galaxy thinks of us. I know the stories they tell. But sometimes being the monster means protecting those who can't protect themselves." In the depths of the ship, Marines checked their weapons and armor. In engineering, technicians pushed the engines beyond safe limits. In medical, doctors prepared for casualties. The Void Hunters had chosen to prey on the innocent, thinking themselves safe in the dark between worlds. They had forgotten that humanity had come from a dark world too, and had learned long ago that sometimes the only way to stop a monster was to become something worse. The Keth system grew larger on the navigation display, and with it, the promise of violence that would remind the galaxy why humanity was feared, and perhaps for the first time, why that fear might be a good thing. Asterisk, the news traveled faster than light itself. Across a dozen space stations, alien traders whispered the same impossible words. The humans are coming. Some fled immediately, abandoning cargo and credits in their haste to reach safer systems. Others stayed, morbid curiosity overcoming their fear. On Station Nexus, the galaxy's largest trading hub, Administrator Veltar watched the departure boards with growing alarm. In the past 6 hours, 70% of the station's population had requested emergency departure clearances. Sir, his aide trembled, the Merchants Guild is demanding answers. They want to know if the humans are expanding. Again, Veltar's forearm shook as he accessed the historical files. Every species in the galaxy knew these records, though most wished they could forget them. The Proxima Incident. 15 years ago, human colonists on Proxima 7 had been attacked by raiders. The raiders killed 300 civilians, mostly children, before escaping to the asteroid belt. A human response was swift and absolute. They didn't just hunt down the raiders. They found every ship, every base, every person who had supported the attack. The entire raider network, spanning 3 systems, simply vanished. No survivors, no prisoners, no mercy. The Outer Rim Wars were worse. When the hegemony decided to relocate human settlements to make room for their own expansion, humanity's response shattered the strongest military alliance in the galaxy's history. Human fleets moved like ghosts, striking without warning, leaving nothing but wreckage and silence. The war lasted 3 years. The hegemony lasted 3 months after the humans decided to end it, but it was the Battle of Terra's Gate that truly terrified the galaxy. When the Dominion threatened Earth itself, bringing 1,000 ships to humanity's doorstep, every species expected to witness humanity's end. Instead, they watched in horror as human defenders turned their own moon into a weapon, splitting it apart to create a deadly field of debris that destroyed half the Dominion fleet. The other half fled, but the humans followed them home. The Dominion homeworld became a monument to human fury, a dead rock floating in space, its cities reduced to glass craters. They fight like demons, Veltar whispered, reading the old reports. They never stop. They never forgive. His aide's scales had turned pale blue with fear. Sir, what should we tell the guild? Before Veltar could answer, a new message appeared on his screen. It was from the Keth system, broadcast on all frequencies. To any who can hear this, the dark ships have come. Our cities burn. Our children hide in caves. If anyone has mercy. Please. The message cut off abruptly. Veltar stared at the screen, his mind racing. The gentle ones were dying, and the humans were rushing toward them. But which fate awaited the Keth system's salvation or annihilation? Meanwhile, aboard the UE's Vengeance, Blake stood before a holographic display showing the galaxy's reaction to their movement. Ships fleeing in all directions, communications chatter filled with panic, entire trade routes shutting down. Sir, Lieutenant Parks reported, we're receiving warnings from 17 different species. They're asking us to reconsider. Blake read through the messages. The Coalition begged them to turn back, promising to send their own peacekeepers. The Trade Federation offered massive bribes. The Neutral Zone Authority threatened sanctions. Sir, Parks continued, there's also this. A new hologram appeared, an elderly alien with kind eyes and gentle features. The message was old, recorded months ago during a cultural exchange. I am Elder Moss of the Gentle Ones, the hologram said. We have heard stories of the fierce humans, and we understand why others fear you. But we also remember the words of your poet, that courage is not the absence of fear, but action despite it. We hope that someday, if we are ever in need, your courage might extend to those who cannot fight for themselves." The bridge fell silent. Blake closed the message and turned to his crew. "They're afraid of us," he said simply. "Every species in the galaxy. They think we're monsters who kill for pleasure, who destroy for sport. They don't understand that we fight hardest when we're protecting something precious." He looked out at the stars rushing past. The gentle ones asked for our courage. There. About to get it? In the distance, the Keth system star grew brighter, and with it, the promise that the galaxy was about to remember why humanity's protection was worth their fear. The Void Hunter fleet hung in space like a disease, their black ships feeding on the dying planet below. Commander Thax stood on his flagship's bridge, watching the harvest with satisfaction. The Gentle Ones had provided more resources than expected there. Cities were rich, their population healthy, their technology surprisingly advanced despite their peaceful nature. "How much longer?" he asked his second-in-command. 2 days, maybe 3, came the reply. "The survivors are hiding in the mountain caves, but we'll smoke them out soon enough." Thax nodded. The Gentle Ones had been perfect prey. No military, no weapons, no allies willing to risk facing the Void Hunters. Their distress signals had been ignored by every major power in the galaxy. As always, the weak would be consumed by the strong. That's when the sensors started screaming. "Contact!" the sensor operator shouted. Single ship emerging from hyperspace. Thax turned to the main display, expecting to see another refugee vessel or perhaps a foolish merchant. Instead, his blood ran cold. The ship was human. It was sleek, gray, and covered in weapon ports that looked like hungry mouths. The hull bore scars from a dozen battles, each one a testament to conflicts survived. But it was the insignia that made Thax's crew step back from their stations. The emblem of the United Earth Space Force, painted in white against the dark metal. "This is Commander Blake of the UE's Vengeance," came the transmission. The voice was calm, almost conversational. "You are attacking a peaceful species under the protection of the Galactic Accord. Withdraw immediately." Thax found his voice after a moment of stunned silence. "Human, you are outnumbered 50-1. Leave now, or share the fate of these weaklings." The response came quickly. "Negative. You have 30 seconds to begin withdrawal, or I will interpret your presence as hostile intent." Thax laughed, though it sounded forced even to his own ears. "You cannot be serious. 1 ship against our entire fleet? 20 seconds. Around the bridge, Thax's crew looked to him for orders. He had fought pirates, rebels, and mercenaries. He had never faced humans, but he knew their reputation. Still, the numbers were impossible to ignore. "Power weapons," he ordered. "Show this fool what happens to heroes." 10 seconds. Thax opened a fleet-wide channel. "All ships, target the human vessel. Let's send a message to anyone else foolish enough till the human ship moved. 1 moment." It was hanging motionless in space. The next it was among them, moving faster than anything that size should be able to move. Weapons fire erupted from its hull like lightning, each shot precisely targeted. 3 Void Hunter ships died in the first volley, their hulls split open like rotten fruit. "Evasive maneuvers!" Thax screamed, but the human ship was already gone, peering on the other side of his formation. More ships exploded, their debris creating a deadly cloud that caught 2 more vessels. The Vengeance moved through the Void Hunter fleet like a predator among prey, never staying in one place long. Enough to be targeted effectively. Every shot it fired found its mark. Every maneuver left enemy ships burning in space. But it was the communications that truly frightened Thax. Blake's voice continued to fill the channels, calm and professional, as he systematically destroyed the Raider fleet. Raider vessel designated 7 Alpha. You have civilian prisoners aboard. Release them immediately or be destroyed. 7 Alpha complied, jettisoning escape pods toward the planet below. Raider vessels 3 through 6. You are attempting to flee with stolen resources. Return the cargo and surrender, or be eliminated. 3 of the 4 ships complied. The 4th died in fire and silenced in 15 minutes. The Void Hunter fleet was reduced from 50 ships to 12. The survivors huddled together, their formation broken, their confidence shattered. This is impossible, Thax whispered. How can one ship? Because we don't fight for profit. Blake's voice cut through the chaos. We don't fight for territory or glory. We fight for people who can't fight for themselves, and that makes us very dangerous. On the planet's surface, Elder Moss emerged from the caves where his people had hidden. Above them, impossible lights danced in the sky as the human ship continued its deadly work. His aide trembled beside him. Elder, what manner of beings have come to help us? Moss watched the battle with ancient eyes. The kind that other races. Fear, he said softly. And now I understand why that fear might be the galaxy's greatest blessing. The human ship appeared directly in front of Thax's flagship, weapons trained on his bridge. Surrender now, Blake said simply. This is your only warning. Thax looked at his crew's terrified faces, then at the wreckage of his once mighty fleet. The humans had come alone, outnumbered 50-1, and they were winning. He reached for the surrender beacon with shaking hands. 3 months later, the galaxy was a different place. The rescue and rebuilding of the Keth system had been broadcast across every civilized world. Billions of beings had watched human engineers work alongside Gentle One architects to rebuild their cities. They had seen human doctors treat alien children with the same care they would show their own kind. They had witnessed the impossible, the galaxy's most feared species showing mercy. But perhaps more importantly, they had seen what happened to those who preyed on the innocent. The Void Hunter trials were swift and public. Those who had cooperated during the battle, who had released prisoners and returned stolen goods, received fair sentences. Those who had not found themselves facing the full weight of galactic justice, with humanity ensuring that every law was followed to the letter. The message was clear. Attack the innocent, and humanity will find you. But surrender, show mercy. Cooperate, and humanity could be reasoned with. Station Nexus, which had been nearly empty during the crisis, was now busier than ever. Traders who had fled in fear returned to find something unexpected. Human ships were not expanding into new territory, but rather patrolling trade routes, protecting merchants from pirates and raiders. Administrator Valtar stood in his office, watching a human patrol ship dock with his station. He still trembled slightly when he saw them, but it was a different kind of fear, now the fear of disappointing someone powerful, rather than the fear of being destroyed by them. Sir, his aide approached with a data pad. The quarterly piracy reports are in. Veltar scanned the numbers and felt his 4 hearts skip in unison. Pirate attacks along the major trade routes had dropped by 90%. Raider activity was at its lowest level in recorded history. The slave trade, which had plagued the galaxy for centuries, was simply ... gone. How is this possible? He whispered. The humans, sir, his aide replied. Word has spread that they respond to distress calls. Pirates are afraid to attack merchants now, knowing that humans might come. Across the galaxy, the same pattern was emerging. Species that had never spoken to each other were now trading freely, protected by the knowledge that somewhere in the darkness, human ships were watching. Children on a dozen worlds fell asleep to bedtime stories about the fierce guardians who came when no one else would. On Earth, in the halls of Fleet Command, Admiral Torres reviewed reports from across human space. Every available ship was being reassigned to patrol duty. Every captain had standing orders to respond to distress calls, regardless of the species. "Sending them." "Sir," his aide reported, "we're receiving formal requests for protection from 47 different systems. The Gentle Ones are asking if we'll establish a permanent base in their system." Torres nodded. It was what he had expected. Fear was giving way to something else, hope. And the Galactic Council? They single quotes adjusting their policies. The resolution condemning human expansion has been withdrawn. They're now discussing a formal alliance. Torres smiled. "I suppose it's hard to condemn someone for protecting trade routes." Back in the Keth system, Elder Moss stood in the newly rebuilt capital city. Where once there had been ruins, now gleaming structures reached toward the stars. The architecture was a blend of human efficiency and Gentle One aesthetics, beautiful, but also defensible. A young human officer approached him. "Elder Moss, the patrol schedule is complete. We'll have ships in this system 24 hours a day." Moss bowed gracefully. "You honor us, Lieutenant Davis. But tell me, do your people not grow tired of fighting?" Davis considered the question carefully. "We don't fight because we enjoy it, Elder. We fight because peace is worth protecting. And sometimes the only way to keep the peace is to make sure everyone knows what happens when you break it." As night fell over the alien world, Moss watched. Human and Gentle One children playing together in the streets. Above them, patrol ships moved silently through the darkness. Their presence, a promise that the nightmare would never return. The galaxy had learned to fear humanity for their capacity for violence. Now they were learning something else, that humanity's protection was worth more than their fear. In the depths of space, pirate captains changed course rather than risk, encountering human patrols. Slave traders abandoned their ships and sought honest work. Raiders dissolved their fleets and scattered to the rim worlds. The message had been sent and received. The galaxy's monsters had become its guardians, and the innocent could sleep safely, knowing that when they called for help, someone would answer. Somewhere in the darkness between stars, another distress signal began its long journey through space. And somewhere else, a human captain received the transmission and changed course, carrying with him the promise that had become humanity's. Gift to the galaxy. No one fights alone. No one dies forgotten. And evil, no matter how strong, will always find something stronger standing in its way. The age of human guardianship had begun. The end